The story begins by introducing a student named Saybil. He attends the Royal Magic Academy in the Kingdom of Wayneas. Saybil has no memories of his life before enrolling in the academy, and his sole purpose in life revolves around magic. He often feels alone in this world until a mysterious woman arrives, inviting him to another world. This piques Saybil's curiosity, and he wonders about the woman's true identity. 3 years later, students at the academy notice an announcement posted on the wall. A fellow student named Kudo appears and inquires about the situation. Another student explains that Saybil has been summoned to the headmaster's office due to his extremely poor grades at the academy. Shortly after, a student named Hort arrives. She is also a student at the Wayneas Academy of Magic, attending the same school as Saybil. As Saybil is about to enter the headmaster's room, he notices a woman standing in front of the door. This woman is named Roos, and she's shouting for the headmaster. Roos is a centuries-old witch, often called the Dawn Witch. Saybil approaches her, and they have a brief conversation. However, he hesitates to invite her inside because he's afraid of the headmaster. Suddenly, Roos attacks Saybil, leaving him defenseless. But then, a humanoid animal figure appears. It's the headmaster's assistant, Hold'em. Hold'em is a wolf who serves under Albus, the headmaster. He's not happy to see Roos hurting one of the academy's students, and a fierce battle erupts between them. Eventually, Hold'em manages to knock Roos' magic staff to the ground. Saybil tries to pick it up, but both Roos and Hold'em stop him. The commotion catches the attention of the headmaster, Albus, who comes out of his room, and he's surprised to find Roos at the academy. Roos, being small in size, managed to sneak past the headmaster's guards. Albus, as the head of the Royal Wayneas Academy of Magic, sometimes organizes challenging exams to help his students grow and improve their magical abilities. The headmaster invites Saybil and Hort into his office, where Hold'em serves them tea and cookies. However, Roos is not expected, and she doesn't receive any welcome. The headmaster discusses Saybil's low grades and suggests that he undergo training outside the academy to improve his magical abilities. Saybil will be guided by a witch on his journey to the village, but Roos interrupts, requesting tea and biscuits from Hold'em. Albus then asks Hold'em to provide Roos with snacks to keep her quiet. Roos then agrees to be Saybil's guide on the condition that Albus introduces her to the author of the ancient magic grimoire of Zero. Albus refuses to give her the highly secretive artifact, but he agrees to the introduction. Roos is pleased with this arrangement, and Saybil and Roos set off on their journey, with Hort accompanying them. Later, Kudo and 2 other students also join the journey, deciding to leave ahead of the group because Kudo doesn't like Saybil. As night falls, Saybil, Hort, and Roos camp in the forest. Saybil shares his magical powers with Hort, who is a clever student while Saybil struggles academically. Roos joins them and offers advice, using her magic staff to cook food for them. Meanwhile, 2 church volunteers watch them from a distance and plan to attack the Wayneas Academy students. The next day, they reach an inn for some relief, but they are confronted by Kudo's 2 friends. The friends falsely accuse Kudo of stealing a map and leaving them behind. Roos explains that Kudo realized witch hunters were after them, so he decided to go alone to save his friends. Roos decides to rescue Kudo and asks the other students to wait at the inn. Saybil feels troubled as he can't assist, but Hort uses Roos and handkerchief to locate her through magic. With Roos' location found, Hort and Saybil continue their journey, while the 2 other students decline to help search for Kudo. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Hort started discussing the 2 students' personalities. Suddenly, they came across a lizard's tail, which made Hort and Saybil realize that they were facing a formidable enemy. Hort began to feel scared, remembering the attributor Ednes, their teacher, had mentioned an anti-witch church faction. Hort suggested to Saybil that they should go back to the academy, because their enemy seemed too powerful. During this conversation, Hort shared a haunting childhood memory with Saybil. She had visited her friend's village and witnessed witch hunters burning her friends alive. Overwhelmed by fear, Hort had fled, leaving her burning friends behind. Despite Holt's suggestion to leave the forest, Saybil refused and insisted on continuing their search for their friend. He believed that if Holt's friends were still alive, she wouldn't have abandoned them. Seeing Saybil's determination, Hort decided to stay with him and rescue Kudo. Meanwhile, Kudo found himself trapped in the forest and confronted by a witch hunter named Tirani. Tirani launched an attack on Kudo, leaving him defenseless. Tirani intended to use Kudo for experiments and imprisoned him. Kudo regretted not going with Roos and Saybil. thinking that maybe this wouldn't have happened if he had. Kudo fought hard to resist being captured by the hunter. Just when things looked bleak, Roos arrived on the scene to rescue Kudo from the relentless attack. Roos wielded her Luden's staff in an attempt to defeat Tirani, but Tirani's robe proved to be incredibly resilient thanks to the holy water from the church. The battle took an unexpected turn when two students suddenly appeared, interrupting the confrontation. Feeling trapped, Tirani resorted to using Saybil as bait. He choked Saybil, rendering him powerless and defenseless against the witch hunter's grip. Tirani then demanded that Roos hand over her Luden's staff in exchange for Saybil's safety. With no other viable option, Roos reluctantly surrendered her Luden's staff to Tirani. Tirani then instructed Saybil to wrap himself in his own robe. Afterward, Tirani ordered Hort to attack the witches and reveal her true identity. It was revealed that Hort was a spy sent by the church to infiltrate the magic school. Her mission was to study magic and become the top student so that the academy would offer her a position as a witch. Therefore, Hort was a traitor working against the witches. Initially, Hort had cunningly placed poison in their food to thwart their journey. This caused Saybil to suffer from severe stomach pain, leading to their separation from Kudo's group. Hort's mission to deceive Roos and capture Kudo had succeeded. However, her true identity as a spy working against the witches remained concealed from Roos and the others, who trusted her implicitly. Hort, a descendant of demons raised by the church, had been assigned a mission to combat witches. Hort was consumed with fear when her cover was unveiled by Tirani in front of her friends. She felt traumatized and conflicted, torn between her loyalty to the church and her newfound friendships. It was Saybil who provided the encouragement Hort needed. He offered a reassuring smile, inspiring her to summon the courage to confront Tirani. Using Kudo's tail, Hort recited a magic spell to face Tirani, but her attack was deflected by Tirani's robe. In a perilous moment, Tirani raised his axe, poised to strike Hort. In the nick of time, Saybil wielded Ludens, enveloping the entire forest in darkness. Tirani was incapacitated, and Saybil regained consciousness. Overjoyed by Saybil's survival, Hort embraced him tightly. However, Roos sternly reprimanded her three students for not heeding her advice, particularly Kudo, whose stubbornness had posed a significant challenge. Following her scolding of the students, Roos turned her attention to Ludens, reprimanding it for absorbing Saybil's energy. Meanwhile, Kudo ventured back into the forest to retrieve his tail, which he had left behind earlier. Upon hearing Kudo's words, Hort and Saybil grew visibly pale. Because Hort had used Kudo's tail as an offering of magic to attack the witch hunters, a revelation that left Kudo furious and his face flushed with anger. Hort swiftly offered her sincere apologies to Kudo for her actions. Intrigued by how Saybil had survived holding the Luden's staff, Hort inquired further. Roos explained that Saybil possessed limitless and abundant magical energy, making it impossible for Ludens to absorb it. Saybil's struggles with learning magic stemmed from his imbalanced energy. Continuing their journey together towards the designated destination, Hort confided in Saybil about her nickname as a demon child. She mentioned that the church intended to purify her soul, but she couldn't understand why Saybil and the others treated her normally despite her betrayal of fellow witches. Saybil didn't dwell on it too much, letting the matter rest. Following Hort's confession, Professor Roos playfully teased Saybil for his lack of expression, and Saybil found Roos to be quite an unusual teacher. Soon after, they all returned to their inn, where they discovered the true identities of the two students as spies from the church. Once the spies were apprehended, Roos and her three students decided to visit a tavern. Before resuming their journey, Roos asked Kudo to regrow his missing hands and tail. However, Kudo had no idea how to perform this regeneration. Roos suggested using the healing magic they had learned at the academy, but Kudo was unfamiliar with it, and it required a substantial amount of mana. Roos explained that Saybil could serve as a source of mana for the students since he possessed an unlimited supply. This would make it easier to restore Kudo's hand. Combining their energies, Roos instructed Kudo to recite a healing spell. Following the spell, Kudo's hand and tail miraculously grew back, leaving him overjoyed with his newfound limbs. The crowd was enchanted by the magical performance and erupted in cheers. Roos then requested that the tavern customer sing a welcoming song for the witches, and everyone seemed to be in high spirits, including Saybil, despite his usual blank expression. Upon reaching the city, Saybil ended up covered in mud, and his clothes were dirty. Roos then suggested that her three students take a bath before continuing their journey. Saybil and Kudo decided to bathe together in a large pool. Kudo shared that he aspired to become a witch in the Magic Instruction Corps. Initially, the corps was made up of church members, but it had since become independent. The Magic Instruction Corps was comprised of beings who were part human and part animal, possessing tremendous power. Saybil inquired about Kudo's motivation to join the Magic Instruction Corps. Kudo then recounted a memory from 6 years ago, when he was part of a circus. During a northern disaster, a witch had declared her intention to destroy the world, leading to widespread conflict. Kudo found himself locked in a cage during the chaos. Afterward, a knight riding a dragon came to rescue him. This event inspired Kudo to become as formidable as that knight. Kudo was curious about Saybil's reasons for wanting to become a witch. Just as Saybil was about to reply, Professor Roots appeared, and they resumed their journey. Along the way, the townspeople warmly welcomed them, appreciative of Professor Roots, who always seemed to have solutions for her 3 students' problems. During their journey, Kudo asked what Professor Roots planned to do after their training. Roots then revealed that she intended to meet a witch named the Mudblack. Kudo found this surprising, but Roots explained that she had been alive for 300 years and didn't experience fatigue. She didn't need to eat, drink, or sleep, which made life quite dull, especially when it came to matters of love. Roots had no interest in love and considered it the most uninteresting thing in the world. She didn't know when her life would come to an end, so she enjoyed spending time with her students. According to Saybil, Roots was a caring and dedicated teacher. Hort guessed that the professor enjoyed playing around, and indeed, Roots had a lot of fun when she played. Soon after, a young boy named Laos approached the 4 witches and urgently asked them to hide. He was being pursued by a half-animal human named Yohei. Yohei discovered their hiding spot and destroyed it. In response, Roots instructed her 3 students to escort Laos out of the forest while she stayed behind to confront Yohei. Yohei recognized Roots' formidable skills and chose to retreat. He was a mercenary who knew about Saybil's past and served a mysterious witch in control of the village, which served as a unique training ground. Yohei possessed animal-like characteristics and had a large white fur resembling a cat's. He wielded immense power in battles and was a formidable opponent. After successfully escaping, Laos led the witches to the village church, where they met a man named Sin Poo, who served as a pastor. Sin Poo was blind and always wore a blindfold. He held a deep distrust of witches and often used harsh and unfriendly words towards them. Following this, Laos explained to Sin Poo that the 3 students had saved him. Sin Poo was well aware that these students were part of a special training program. His demeanor remained stern, driven by a traumatic past encounter with a witch. He cautioned the 3 students that their lives were at risk, as the most powerful witch had hired Yohei to eliminate those in the special training program. This revelation shocked the 3 students, making them question whether they might indeed be expelled from the academy due to the extreme danger of their journey. Anxiety and insecurity crept in. However, Roots arrived and dispelled her students' negative thoughts. She requested that Sin Poo guide them to the training village. Shortly thereafter, Laos reunited with his father, and they led Roots and her companions to the house where they would stay. It was evident that the villagers held a dislike for Roots and her group. Upon their arrival at the house, they noticed hanging dolls, which were symbols representing past witches. As they entered the house, Roots began muttering about killing the headmistress, leaving the 3 students bewildered by her reaction. Saybil suggested that the village might become a battleground, and this could potentially be a graduation requirement for the students. This idea led to a debate between Kudo and Saybil regarding the war and their graduation. Saybil told Kudo that he didn't have to participate in the battle if he didn't want to. Meanwhile, Hort, who didn't want Saybil to get hurt, left the house in tears. Saybil, confused by Hort's tears, attempted to follow her. Kudo then explained that Hort considered Saybil a good friend, leading Saybil to rush after Hort, who was clearly upset. On the other hand, Hort found herself crying in the church while praying. Inside, she encountered a cloaked child named Li, who seemed shy. Their interaction was interrupted by the arrival of the priest, prompting Li to leave the church. Li served the village church and had a mysterious personality, always wearing a hood. However, Li was quite eager to assist the priest in church duties, and Hort apologized for talking to her during her prayer. As Hort was leaving the church, she was blocked by the priest, Sin Poo, who held a staff. It was revealed that Sin Poo was a member of Dia Edness, and he attacked Hort as he felt disappointed by her betrayal of the church, intending to teach her a lesson. Meanwhile, Saybil couldn't locate Hort anywhere and returned to the house to discuss her whereabouts with Roos. Roos used magic to track Hort's location, leading them into the forest. Upon reaching the entrance of a cave, they discovered bloodstains, which frightened Kudo. He urged them to leave, suspecting potential traps inside. Roos, however, was drawn to the cave and tempted to enter. Kudo decided to exit the cave while Roos and Saybil pressed on. Roos gave Saybil the choice to leave, assuring him that she wouldn't be upset. Saybil, determined to rescue Hort regardless of the dangers ahead, insisted that he would do so because she was his friend. He also assured Roos that he would help her if she ever needed assistance. On the other hand, Kudo found himself facing Yohei outside the cave. Yohei made an enticing offer to Kudo, suggesting that he could join his group and learn magic from them. Kudo was initially tempted by the idea and considered following Yohei. However, his intentions came to a screeching halt when Yohei casually mentioned that he had consumed Hort and was now satiated. This revelation sent Kudo into a fit of rage, and he immediately challenged Yohei to a fight. Meanwhile, inside a room, Roos and Saybil found themselves under attack from an adversary, leading them into a fierce battle. During the struggle, Roos lost possession of Ludens, as it had been taken by Saybil. In the midst of the chaos, they also came face to face with an extremely powerful witch who appeared to be overwhelmingly formidable. It dawned on Saybil that this woman was the same individual who had brought him to this other world. The mysterious woman extended an invitation to Saybil, indicating that she had been eagerly awaiting his arrival for a considerable period of time. This mysterious figure was Zero, a remarkably powerful witch. Zero had appeared alongside Saybil 3 years ago, when he had lost his memory, raising questions about her knowledge of Saybil's past. Then, without warning, Zero launched an attack on Roos, rendering her unconscious. Witnessing Roos' invulnerable state, Saybil rushed to her side and picked her up. In the aftermath of the assault, Zero extended an invitation to Saybil, urging him to abandon his friends and join her. She intended to whisk Saybil away from Albus and offer him magic education. Saybil, however, held the belief that Roos was not suitable to guide him as a witch due to her inability to use magic. In a resounding declaration, Saybil firmly refused Zero's offer, choosing to remain with Roos and the rest of his friends. To Saybil, Hort and the others held deep significance in his life, and he had no desire to recover his lost memories. Following this, Roos regained her composure and absorbed energy from Saybil, becoming immensely powerful. She recited Hort's incantation and demonstrated her ability to replicate others' techniques with a mere glance. However, Zero effortlessly deflected Roos' attacks. Zero then revealed herself as the author of the ancient grimoire of Zero that Roos had been fervently searching for. Saybil, at this moment, finally comprehended the true meaning of the headmistress's words back at the academy. Zero went on to unveil her identity as the witch the Mudblack. Saybil stepped forward, ready to protect Roos from any harm, but everything came to a halt when Zero mentioned that Saybil had passed her test. Saybil was taken aback by Zero's words, struggling to understand. Zero clarified that she was the third instructor and had been testing them all along. Roos couldn't help but burst into laughter, realizing that their entire journey had been a test from the start. Hort joined in, embracing Saybil with joy for their successful passage. Saybil, who had previously taken Ludens from Roos and attacked Hort, offered his apologies. He was quite curious about how Roos had discerned the true nature of their journey. Roos began recounting their experiences, starting from the moment they arrived in the village up to their encounter in the cave. Soon, Kudo joined his 2 friends, and all 3 were declared graduates. The villagers emerged to celebrate the students' achievement. Meanwhile, news of the students' success reached the headmistress, prompting her to let out a hysterical scream. Hold'em checked in on Albus, who explained that the 3 students had indeed passed the test, a feat that had not occurred in many years. Back at the graduation celebration party with Saybil, Zero outlined the upcoming advanced exam. She requested the 3 students to establish their own shops. Saybil, however, couldn't contain his curiosity about his own past and decided to ask Zero. She assured him that his memories would resurface when the time was right. Following the challenging ordeal, Yohei, now in a more friendly role, served a scrumptious meal to the students. He couldn't help but mention to Saybil that his previous stern demeanor had frightened the students. Saybil, who had once been part of Dia Ignis, had chosen to cover his eyes due to his sensitivity to light, rendering him blind. As the event concluded, Kudo and the others stepped outside and were greeted by the sight of a majestic flying dragon king. Kudo, being a devoted fan of the flying dragon king, rushed over to get a closer look. To their surprise, the dragon king handed the three students a letter. Zero, accompanied by her friends, exchanged greetings with the magnificent creature. Upon reading the letter, the students were delighted to discover that the headmistress had granted them permission to use full magic. Excitedly, Kudo engaged the Dragon King in conversation, expressing his desire to join the magic instruction unit. The Dragon King eagerly anticipated the arrival of promising students like Kudo. Following their encounter with the Dragon King, Kudo and his companions returned to Zero's room. They found Roots visibly upset that she had not been invited to meet the dragon. This childish display of emotion puzzled the three students, making them wonder if Roots would abandon them to continue her own journey. To their surprise, Roots chose to remain with them, intrigued to witness her students' growth. Roots and Zero then engaged in a conversation about Saybil's past. It was revealed that Saybil had endured a traumatic experience in which he witnessed his mother's tragic death. To cope with this, he absorbed all of his mother's magical power, effectively sealing away his memories. Saybil then chose to live a miserable place to lead a dark life. Shockingly, it was revealed that Saybil's father was a notorious dark wizard in the world of magic, raising concerns that his father might be pursuing him. Both instructors were committed to protecting Saybil from any potential threat. As they settled into the village, Saybil and his friends gradually integrated into the community. Hort found employment at a shop, Kudo utilized his healing abilities at a clinic, and Saybil played a vital role as an energy source for his fellow witches. Every morning, Hort and Kudo would gather energy from Saybil before heading off to work. Later in the day, Roots would pay Saybil a visit, finding him always secluded in his house. Saybil explained that his role involved cleaning and cooking for Hort and Kudo. He even took care of their laundry, which surprised Root. She reminded Saybil that he should engage with the villagers and leave the house because his cold attitude was irritating her greatly. Root decided to open up about her feelings to Saybil. She admitted having feelings for him and requested that he try to be more sensitive to others' emotions. Saybil, however, confessed his difficulty in understanding emotions and love. This confession reminded Root of the hardships Saybil had endured, filling her with compassion for him, and she embraced him warmly. Afterwards, Root asked Saybil to gather tea leaves from the forest. She encouraged him to socialize more and explore the village. Root then met Laos, and they embarked on a tea leaf finding adventure together. Saybil, however, grew tired following Laos and suggested returning, feeling they had ventured too far. But Laos insisted on showing him the location of the tea leaves. As it turned out, Saybil and Laos got lost, and Laos couldn't help but cry because he had deceived Saybil about knowing the way. Saybil, however, didn't mind the lie and consoled Laos. To their surprise, a little mouse appeared and guided them back to the church. Later on, Laos was taken away by his mother, leaving Saybil alone to meet with Sinpu. Sinpu warmly served a meal to Saybil and discussed the forest's dangers. Saybil explained that his task was to find tea leaves for Root. The priest informed Saybil that he could find the tea leaves at Zero's shop and encouraged him to seek help from others if he needed it. Following this conversation, Saybil encountered Hort, who seemed upset. Hort had injured Yohei during an encounter with a group of wolves and felt guilty for scolding him. Feeling downhearted and unworthy of being a witch, Hort was comforted by Li, who then escorted her to the church. Suddenly, Roos appeared and requested Saybil's assistance in supplying energy to Zero. Zero was tending to Yohei, who had sustained severe injuries and was depleted of mana. Saybil then willingly provided his energy to aid in healing Yohei. Following the successful healing, Yohei expressed his displeasure to Saybil about Zero's actions. It appeared that Yohei was jealous and didn't want Zero to repeat the energy transfer. Saybil worried that Yohei might even expel Hort for her behavior. However, Yohei didn't intend to go that far. He believed in giving Hort a second chance but needed to discipline her firmly to encourage a change. Saybil was reminded of when Laos used to fear his father's anger. Hearing Yohei's concerns, Saybil hurried to Laos's house to offer advice. Meanwhile, Zero and Roops continued their conversation about Yohei frequently visiting Zero's house. Roo suspected a close relationship between Zero and Yohei. Zero explained that she desired to spend her life with someone she loved, growing old together with them. Roos was touched by Zero's heartfelt words. Switching to Saybil, he invited Laos to play in the forest the next day. Meanwhile, Kudo woke up from his faint and remembered healing numerous patients. He went to the central room and found Saybil and Hort engaged in a discussion. Hort informed them that the chairman had carried Kudo after healing 13 patients in one go, sparking a disagreement between the two students. Roos intervened to mediate the argument among her students, advising them not to quarrel at night. Later, she inquired about their plans for the next day and suggested they visit Zero's shop together. Consequently, the three students headed to Zero's shop to help organize books in the library. Zero instructed Saybil and his friends to organize the books in the library properly. While doing so, they discussed the Forbidden Library located to the north. Kudo explained the Forbidden Library to his two friends, who had never heard of it before. Hort became intrigued after hearing Kudo's explanation and expressed her desire to visit the Forbidden Library with her friends. Saybil agreed to accompany Hort, but Kudo declined, citing the library's location in the northern area, which still bore the remnants of a disaster. Zero cautioned that the place was perilous for those who couldn't control their magic. She then invited Hort to practice and improve her magical powers. After some time, Hort successfully mastered the control of her magical abilities and felt overjoyed. However, Zero suddenly became exhausted and ran out of mana. Saybil wanted to provide energy, but his efforts proved futile. Saybil then carried Zero back to his house, while Hort was instructed to summon Yohei. At Saybil's home, Zero rested in her room and engaged in a conversation with Saybil. Saybil inquired whether Zero knew his mother, to which Zero replied that she didn't, but she was acquainted with Saybil's father. Saybil's father was a highly skilled and renowned witch, and according to Zero, Saybil bore a striking resemblance to him. Shortly after, Yohei arrived and brought food for Zero, expressing his gratitude to Saybil for helping her. Saybil excused himself as he was going with Laos. Together, Saybil and Laos ventured into the forest and discovered various medicinal plants. Saybil had a guidebook and shared information about the plants they encountered, making it easy to identify them. Along the way, Saybil found himself daydreaming and recalled the words Zero had spoken to him. She had asked him to make a choice about his future, whether he was meant to be a witch or just a mana supplier. Saybil was torn, facing a dilemma about his path ahead. During their exploration, Saybil and Laos were suddenly attacked by thorn monsters, resulting in injuries. Saybil attempted to help Laos, but he couldn't use magic, which left him feeling frustrated. In his distress, he called out for Roos. A mysterious black shadow guided Saybil out of the forest, leading him to Zero and Yohei. Afterward, Zero used Roos' blood to heal Laos. As a result of the ordeal, both Laos and Roos fainted from exhaustion, leaving Saybil to lament the harm that had befallen Laos. According to Roos, Saybil had been attacked by remnants of the disaster from the north, suggesting that someone had released these remnants in the forest, causing harm to Saybil and Laos. Hort approached Yohei and the priest, and they discussed the incident, with Yohei planning to gather information in the neighboring village. The priest and Li made their way to the town to inquire about the crystal ball. Yohei asked Hort to take care of the village, but he seemed hesitant. Shortly afterward, Zero appeared in her uniform and decided to accompany Yohei. With no other option, Yohei allowed Zero to join him on the mission. As for the priest and Li, they embarked on their journey through the forest while being watched by witch hunters. Meanwhile, Hort informed the three students that he would serve as the village's guardian for the time being. Later, he requested the three students to return home. Roos questioned Hort about his presence in the village, accusing him of releasing the remnants. Hort firmly denied the accusation and suggested that the entire village might have been destroyed. In return for her protection, Hort asked Roos to safeguard the village that had been left behind by Owless. Roos recalled her friend who had sacrificed herself to save the villagers she loved. Hort then offered Roos access to the ancient witchcraft grimoire of Zero, if she agreed to protect the village. Roos then headed into the forest to clean up the remnants' debris using ludens. On the other hand, Saybil was torn between wanting to learn magic from his two friends, Hort and Kudo. However, Laos's father approached Saybil and asked him to stay away from his son due to the forest incident. Saybil requested a chance to practice magic together with Laos, but his father refused and walked away, leaving Saybil behind. Suddenly, Saybil was abducted by Tirani and taken away. During the journey, Saybil recalled the tragic incident when a witch had killed his mother, and he used his powers to eliminate the witch, Psycho. As Saybil regained consciousness, He realized that Tirani was responsible for that incident. Hort and Kudo also arrived to rescue Saybil, who was held captive. However, the three students were easily defeated by Tirani. Soon after, Tirani faced off with the priest and was dismembered. Zero and Yohei arrived in the forest and found the injured students, while Roots and Hold'em had just arrived at the scene. It was revealed that Hold'em had asked Tirani to test the three students and the villagers. In exchange for successfully administering the test to the village residents and the three students, Albus would spare Tirani from the death penalty. Upon hearing Hold'em's explanation, Roots and her friends grumbled in response. Hold'em suggested inviting Tirani to join them in protecting the village from the remnants. Initially, Hort strongly rejected the idea, shedding tears because Tirani was a traitor whom she despised. However, the priest and others attempted to explain to help Hort understand. In the end, Hort reluctantly agreed to allow Tirani to join them, but she insisted on continuous monitoring as a condition. After making this challenging decision, Hort cried in Roos' embrace. Later, Saybil and Hort had a conversation while sharing a drink. Saybil was curious about the concept of love and remembered Roos's words about Hort having feelings for him. This revelation made Hort blush and feel embarrassed. She explained to Saybil what it meant to love someone, describing it as thinking of the person closest to you when you felt cornered. In all innocence, Saybil admitted that he always thought of Professor Roos. Hearing this, Hort became conflicted but ultimately supported Saybil's feelings. As Hort was about to ask Saybil for energy, he'd unexpectedly declined and left. It turned out that Saybil was searching for Zero and wanted to discuss the recovered memories. Zero revealed that she was Saybil's biological aunt, and Saybil's father held the title of Number 13, making him Zero's older brother. When Zero learned that Saybil was to be used as an experiment by his father, she decided to flee with him. However, Saybil never blamed his aunt and was curious to learn more about his father. Meanwhile, Hort was busy looking for Roos, intending to share her feelings with Saybil. However, Roos had overheard their conversation and discovered Hort's emotions. Roos found love to be a troublesome matter, while Hort was upset at the idea of Roos leaving them due to Saybil's feelings. Nevertheless, Roos decided to keep an eye on the progress of her three students. Following that, Kudo and Yohei apprehended a boy who had caused a disturbance in the village. The boy was suspected of being a pawn sent by the church to disrupt the magic village. Hort and Kudo requested leniency for the boy, while Yohei wanted to punish him. This disagreement among the witches was eventually resolved. The priest arrived to settle their disagreement and began questioning the boy. He discovered that the boy was just a bait sent by the church to their village. Not long after, Roos and the others gathered for a meeting to determine the boy's fate. Meanwhile, Hort roamed around and spotted Tirani playing with the village children. A sister named Nana accompanied Tirani to ensure there were no mischiefs in the village. Later, Nana invited Hort to join them the following day for a fishing trip by the river with the children. Hort gladly accepted Nana's invitation to accompany her, the children, and Tirani on their recreational outing to the river. Meanwhile, Kudo took the boy out of his room, and their discussion continued. Not long after, Kudo brought the boy to the church to enjoy Lili's cooking. The villagers were well aware of Lili's culinary skills, and many of them came to savor her dishes. According to the boy, Kudo, Lili's food was also incredibly delicious. Kudo was gradually adjusting to life in the village, and Kudo introduced Lili as someone who was part human and part beast. Kudo was also surprised to discover a rat with excellent cooking skills. Lili apologized to Kudo for not explaining her true identity earlier. Kudo expressed his gratitude to Lili for providing him with food. Afterward, Kudo was escorted by Kudo to a room where he could rest. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Kudo shed tears for the kind treatment he had received from the villagers. Meanwhile, Saybil was diligently practicing magic under Zero's guidance, while Kudo and Hort were mastering the new spells taught by Saybil, thoroughly enjoying their magical journey. Unexpectedly, Saybil bravely confessed his feelings of love to Roos, leaving his two friends utterly astonished. Roos herself was taken aback by Saybil's daring declaration of love. The following morning, Saybil woke up early and prepared breakfast for Roos. He attempted to use Ludens, but it failed to respond. Undeterred, he decided to create a new potion that would unleash formidable magic. Saybil discussed his plans for the day with Roos, who had the responsibility of keeping an eye on Kudo in the village. Saybil informed her that Kudo had gone fishing at the river with Hort. Down at the river, Tirani found himself haunted by his dark past. Nana approached him and engaged in a conversation with Tirani. Hort noticed Tirani's affection for Nana, who carried herself with grace and elegance. However, things took a sudden turn when Kadi transformed into a menacing monster and launched an attack on the students. In a selfless act, Tirani sacrificed himself to shield the students. He implored Kudo and Hort to end Kadi's life to prevent further harm. Initially hesitant to do a promise, Hort eventually realized they had no other choice. Kudo offered his tail as a conduit for Hort to recite the spell needed to stop Kadi. Following the intense battle, Hort's magic proved effective in defeating Kadi. Kudo promptly used his healing abilities to save Tirani, who had been injured during the confrontation. However, their victory was short-lived as Kadi transformed into a swarm of scorpions surrounding them. In a courageous move, Tirani was prepared to sacrifice himself to shield the two students. Just as they faced this dire situation, Roos arrived on the scene with Ludens, swallowing the scorpions and ending the threat. Afterward, Hort, Kudo, and their friends buried Kadi's body in the village, mourning the loss of his unique skills that couldn't save him. Soon, the Dragon King descended upon the village, and Kudo rushed to meet him. The Dragon King delivered a crucial message, urging the three students to return to Wayneas Academy, as the magic village would soon become a battleground. Saybil and his friends confronted Zero, expressing their determination to stand with the villagers against the church's forces. They had even made a mana-enhancing potion to boost the witch's energy during the upcoming conflict. Saybil also devised a plan to enlist Tirani's assistance in setting traps to minimize casualties and capture the culprits. However, Tirani found himself torn between opposing the church that had raised him and his newfound connection with Nana. Despite her awareness of Tirani's feelings for her, he left without acknowledging them. The following day, the witches diligently set up traps in anticipation of the impending battle. Roos and the priest held a discussion about the church's plans, which included spreading a pandemic and using orphans as pawns in the conflict. To avoid unnecessary loss of life, the witches made sure their traps were well prepared. Meanwhile, Albus approached Hold'em and requested his assistance in gathering allies to aid the magic village during the impending disaster. Albus managed to rally support from various allied nations, though she remained uncertain about the magnitude of the impending challenges. In the village, Saybil bid farewell to Laos, with a promise to reunite in the future. Saybil, along with his friends, braced themselves for the approaching battle. Saybil willingly channeled all his energy into Zero, making himself feel lighter as his energy diminished. Meanwhile, the enemy troops began to mobilize. Roos, positioned in the treetops with Ludens, closely monitored the movements of the attackers. As the armored troops advanced, they fell victim to the witches' well-laid traps, rendering them powerless. The witch troops unleashed a magical rain of potions that allowed them to regenerate their limbs and extremities. This weakened the enemy's spirit, and the demon forces quickly advanced to confront the witches on the front lines. Meanwhile, the priest received word that Li and her forces had been captured by the enemy. The priest and Yohei rushed into battle, successfully rescuing Li. The priest then instructed Li to leave the battlefield while he and Yohei faced the regenerating demons. The demons proved to be incredibly strong and appeared unbeatable, while the church forces found themselves ensnared in Tirani's traps. Tirani then joined the battle alongside the three students. Hort used her magic to attack the church's forces until they were defeated. When Kudo was injured, he used his healing magic to mend the wounded. The church's forces labeled Tirani as a traitor, and they were on the verge of attacking him. However, Tirani displayed immense power and defeated the forces with his axe on the battlefield. Not long after, Zero gathered her energy and banished the half-beast humans to another portal, preventing them from continuing the fight. Following the intense spectacle, Albus and her followers gathered at the altar. They observed the arrival of the Alliance forces, who were closely monitoring the battlefield. Meanwhile, Albus had assembled her Alliance members to extract information from the church's leaders, revealing them as the masterminds behind the war. Albus demonstrated that the church's leaders had made a grave mistake, causing the disasters in the village. The church's leaders found themselves in a dilemma as their deception was exposed. Suddenly, scorpion creatures from the remnants of the disaster attacked the bishop, overwhelming him with their presence. In a desperate bid to survive, the bishop was consumed by the countless insects. Roos then used Ludens to swallow the swarm of scorpions, ending the threat. Roos exposed the crimes of the bishop in front of the public, retrieving the pearl from Kadi's body before he was harmed. She placed the pearl in the bishop's mouth, making him swallow it. After the battle, the villagers discussed the defeat of the church's forces by the witches, who managed to emerge victorious without any casualties. The world witnessed the defeat of the anti-magic faction at the hands of the witches. Not long after, Saybil and his friends received graduation certificates from Albus. She offered them positions to serve at the academy, with Kudo joining the magical instruction forces, Saybil becoming a researcher focused on advancing magic, and Hort becoming a master of magic at the academy. Following their return to the village, Saybil and his friends started packing their belongings. Zero, as a parting gift, gave Saybil a book containing instructions on crafting magical potions. Saybil diligently worked through the puzzles within the book, finding his father's name and the connection to Zero inscribed within its pages. With their farewells said, Saybil and his friends prepared to leave the village. Tirani, on the other hand, chose to remain behind, joining forces with the priest and Yohei to protect the magic village. Albus assigned a new mission to Saybil and his friends, which a journey to the Forbidden Library. Despite their graduation, Saybil was overjoyed that he could continue to be with his two dear friends. They were escorted by the Dragon King to explore the northern region. Saybil couldn't help but think of his beloved, who had embarked on a journey to the other world, and with that, their story came to a close. Moral lesson from the story: always carry a magical book, because you never know when you might need to make someone eat pearls to win a battle against scorpions.